On June 7th, Apple announced their new version of iOS, iPadOS, macOS, watchOS, a ton of health features, and some other new updates to their software lineup. But let's get this out of the way. It was a fairly disappointing update, at least to me. This video will just cover iOS because I think the iPadOS update really deserves its own video. I'm Michael Buncher with TechMB, and let's get into iOS 15. The first thing Apple showed off was FaceTime, which is basically now a free Zoom replacement. There are features like spatial audio to position people on a FaceTime call across your device and make it sound like the audio is coming from their virtual position. I haven't had really a chance to try this out yet, and to be honest, it doesn't really matter to me. I mainly use FaceTime when I'm working with partners on schoolwork or every now and then with some family or friends. But the new grid view option, the ambient noise, portrait mode, just don't really affect the way that I use FaceTime. The one thing I am curious about, however, is how SharePlay is going to work. SharePlay is a new feature that lets you share content like Apple Music, Disney Plus TV shows and music, TikTok videos, or any other app that builds the feature in to other people on a FaceTime call. Apple says that the content is being shared in real time, so there's no lag. We'll have to see how that holds up in testing. What we don't really know, though, is what is going to happen for people who don't have any of these services. Apple is supposed to tell you where to purchase Apple Music, for example, so you can listen to the song. But do you just not hear the song or not see the TV show if you don't have Disney Plus? These are questions that will have to be answered more later once people actually start using these features. I am excited, though, to be able to share my screen on a FaceTime call. And the other exciting thing for me, at least, was that now people can join FaceTime calls even if they're not using an Apple device. They can't make a FaceTime call without an Apple device, but at least they can join them on Android or Windows devices. FaceTime calls can also be scheduled and sent as a link, which is just another jab at Zoom. Right here we kind of see a theme in iOS 15. Apple seems to have taken a step back and looked at the popular services and figured out how they can integrate those features natively into iOS. FaceTime has basically now killed Zoom for most casual situations, and it'll probably convince more people to join services like Apple Music or Apple TV so they can share all this content with their friends. For me personally, this is all overkill for what I use FaceTime for, but it's nice to see these features added, especially the screen sharing feature, which will help my parents with tech support. Next up was focus modes. To me, these seem like more customizable, situation-designated do not disturb options. You could already turn on do not disturb while driving, or iOS would see you have a calendar appointment coming up and suggest you turn on do not disturb. This is just a little more powerful, though, than on or off. Focus allows you to have a designated work or personal mode where you can control what apps notify you, what messages you see, even what apps and widgets show up on your home screen during a specific mode. You can share your status and messages so people know you are trying to focus and not just ignoring them, and they added a very abusable breakthrough button so you can be contacted regardless. You can also schedule focuses to turn on at a certain time, or if you're at a certain place, or if you're using a certain app. Additionally, it's possible to set it to use AI to turn it on when you hit certain signals that your phone thinks should trigger one of these focuses. When using Focus, you can set it to allow time-sensitive notifications such as a food delivery, or if there is motion detected by your doorbell, it'll let you know about those. Other apps can request access to your Focus to notify others you're in focus mode. And as always, these modes will sync across your Apple device to make sure you aren't being pestered all the time. I see this feature as being a little more useful to me than some of the other updates because I think it may help me cut down on a lot of the distractions I experience on a daily basis using my phone. I really like that you can now duplicate app icons, and I have a homework profile set to only show me a certain page when I'm in that homework focus mode with less apps than before. Sadly, I think the dock transfers over, so I can't remove my social media apps, which I've placed all in the dock, and those are what really distracts me. But I think this page only shows up when you have that certain focus turned on, which for me is a lot better than the app limits Apple introduced a few years ago. For that mode, it was really easy to just blast through the time limit by putting in your passcode. And for someone with as bad ADHD and executive function disorders like myself, putting the control on me to get rid of that lock just isn't a good idea. But physically not having those apps on the home screen and not allowing them to notify me at all is much better. You can also trigger the focus mode directly from Control Center, and Do Not Disturb seems to have been rolled in with Focus, so you can share your status, trigger with smart modes, etc., which could be helpful for some people. That moves us to notifications, which have gotten an update. I was really hoping Apple would introduce a better design and easier system of managing notifications. The design to me still isn't great. It looks a lot like a jailbreak tweak, which I'm not a huge fan of. The bigger app icons and the contact photos for messages are helpful, but it still looks way too cluttered and too overwhelming. And there's also just not a lot you can do with notifications. Apple has also built a new summary feature to collect all the junkish notifications that aren't time sensitive, and Apple's going to sort them by what they deem as being priority, and then will deliver them at a good, non-busy time to not overwhelm you. Messages and whatnot will never be included in this, and this also includes any urgent messages, like a food delivery or a doorbell. They also have functions to mute apps or messaging threads for different time lengths if they've noticed that you haven't been responding to that thread, and they'll intelligently suggest you mute it for an hour or a certain time, but you can also just manually mute them yourself. I still think notifications needs a better system to give you more control over them, as well as a better design and a better way of letting you know you have notifications, as well as more reminder options. The way notifications disappear once you view them on the lock screen and then are hidden behind a swipe up is just annoying, and it introduces more interactions I have to do with my device than I need to. It also has the side effect of making me forget I even have some notifications at all. Ultimately, for me, iOS notifications just still feel too either overwhelming, or I end up forgetting that stuff is even there, which is why the calendar widget for me on my home screen has become so vital. Next up are all the smart features like live text, which uses machine learning to identify text from the camera app to photos. You can manipulate text in a photo the same way you would from like a website, or scan a phone number from a picture and then call them, etc. You can also search for text in a picture and it will find it for you, which is honestly amazing. You can also now search for pictures by location, people, scenes, or objects using Spotlight, which is really cool. When the device detects that there's writing in an app, it gives off a little icon you can click to highlight all of the text. Even if the icon doesn't appear, which happened to me in a few cases, you can still grab text, although sometimes it won't work. I wasn't surprised sometimes it didn't function, but when it worked, it was amazing to just go into a picture and start highlighting messages. The search function also really worked well, and it was pretty incredible just being able to search. Once again, I don't know how important some of these functions really are, as I have never once thought that I needed to be able to search for text or grab text from photos, but they're there. The ability to start a new text message and just put the address in by scanning text from the camera could be useful, but I wonder how well this will all deal with cursive. It doesn't support every language, but I'm assuming Apple is working to roll it out to as many devices and languages as possible. I was a little hyped for some new messages features, which seemed almost guaranteed with all the iMessage theme on the WWDC invitations. Granted, I am pretty happy that we got a lot of feature updates in iOS 14, but updates are always appreciated. Instead, we got a collage view if you get a few pictures, and a new grid view if you have a bunch of them. Honestly, the change I appreciate the most is that now the contact area has FaceTime broken out from it, so when you click the contact, it automatically brings you to the person's information. Apple also introduced a new Share With You function. In essence, if someone sends you a picture or a link to a news article or a web link, that picture will show up in your photo library alongside your pictures, or that news link will show up in Apple News under a new section titled Shared with You, so you can see it and read the article when you want. You can then also click a reply button to let that person know you've read it or watched it or listened to it when you get the chance. Not all apps support this feature yet, but Apple is working on expanding it. And I think this will be really good for people who have difficulties remembering stuff that's been sent to them, like myself. And now having web links show up in my web browser will help me get back to stuff that I wanted to look at, but just forgot to deal with. Speaking of web browsers, Safari is different. In some ways, it kind of reminds me of Microsoft Edge, especially on the Mac and the iPad. But on iOS, the URL bar is smaller and put on the bottom of the screen. You can now swipe across it to switch between tabs or swipe up to get to all of your tabs. I also think the bottom area of the screen is getting a little crowded with the home bar to go home and the tab browser gesture area. There's also kind of a disconnect between the gestures because swiping up on the home bar brings you home and swiping up and holding gets you to multitasking. But just swiping up in Safari brings you to tab view. We'll see how Apple continues this redesign. Other miscellaneous updates. Maps gets more detailed in a cool new Street View and augmented reality mode as long as you're in any city named Cupertino, California. Once support has rolled out to your phone, you can actually take your phone, your wallet, with the ability to add your ID to it as well as hotel keys, car keys, home keys. You can even get through TSA with just your phone. I love the additional usage of the ultra-wideband chip on devices that have it, as it seems to have so much potential. I'm still waiting for the day that smart home devices use that wideband chip to automatically turn your lights on when you walk into a room and turn them off when you leave, or adapt your air conditioning based on where you are in the house at that moment. And I feel that this idea just got a little closer to being reality. Siri now works on device, which gives her a massive speed boost, and apparently there are a bunch of changes to privacy features that I didn't touch before and probably won't now. I do love the new weather app. It's beautiful, and I love the animations and full screen design, which seem to only be available on devices running an A12 chip or above. But I can't wait to continue using this app with more accurate information. I don't use Apple Notes. I prefer the design and functionality of Google Keep, as well as the easy sync between my devices. So I haven't tested any of the new features that Apple added, but they made tagging people in notes and concepts easier, as well as an edit history. Does that sound familiar? Once again, Apple is building a competitor's features into their own services, and this time, they've aimed their sights on Google Docs. Siri can announce notifications. There are health trends in the Health app. Find My gives separation alerts for some new devices like the AirPods Pro and Max. You can also get 3 weeks of free iCloud storage for device setups when you purchase a new device. And that's about it for iOS 15. Except for iCloud Plus, which is a little worrying to me. It's included with every paid subscription to iCloud and it allows for more private interactions on the web. But what is there to stop Apple from focusing on privacy features the way they do now and just say that if you want to stop ad tracking across platforms or get the privacy dashboard, you have to pay for an iCloud Plus plan. I hope Apple doesn't do this where they take, a core component of iOS, all their privacy focus, and turn it into a subscription model. So far, for a first beta, performance has been pretty good, sometimes even better than it was in iOS 14. Yeah, there are some weird bugs involving RAM management, some freezing, odd touch rejection issues, and battery life isn't great. But it's actually pretty stable. I'm certainly a hypocrite as I'm running it on my main iPhone XR, but you probably shouldn't do it unless you don't mind dealing with any potential bugs that come up. I'm not responsible for those. I am excited to try out all the new focus features, and I hope that places quickly roll out the ID function so that I can just put my license in my phone. I don't really care about some of the new intelligence features or the FaceTime updates, but I think there's certainly a market for them somewhere. I also really hope that Apple focuses on UI optimization and battery optimization over the course of iOS 15 because they've been kind of lacking recently. Overall, it's an iOS update. It's not the biggest thing I was hoping for, but it certainly brings some great quality of life improvements. Thank you all so much for watching my video. I really hope you enjoyed it and got some useful information out of it. If you liked it, feel free to leave me a like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Michael Buncher with TechMB. I'll see you in the next one.